Hey guys, what I'd like to do today is talk about my 14-inch gaming laptop, the Razer Blade 14. So in my first video, I talked about specifications, I did an unboxing and I showed you the laptop, etc. And in my last video, I showed you how to get set up and update Windows and install AMD software, Razer software. What I'd like to do in this video is give you a mini review and give you my overall impression of the laptop after using it for a week or two. So I'm going to be talking about gaming, and then I'll talk about my positive impressions, what I do like about this laptop. I'll talk about some neutral things which, they're neither positive nor negative, and some things which I guess are negative, but I'm willing to live with because it's a smaller and lighter laptop. Then I'll talk about things that I don't like about this laptop. Then I'll talk about battery life. And at the end, I'd like to talk about some major concerns that I have about this laptop and the Razer brand in general. And that's something I'll have to think about in the future, but I'll get to that at the end. Right now, let's talk about gaming. One of the attractions of the Razer Blade 14 is that it's a good all-round device. It weighs just under 1.8 kilograms and it's got a 14-inch display. So it's small enough and it's light enough that you can take this laptop anywhere. If you're going to work, if you're going to school, university, if you're traveling on the train or if you're flying, you can take this anywhere with ease. It's not too heavy. And it's comfortable enough that you can sit with this on your lap on the sofa as well. If you just want to browse the web or watch YouTube or watch Netflix. But, of course, everyone is buying this to play games. Now, I spoke about specifications before, and I've spoke about the fact that this has the AMD Ryzen 9 5900HX CPU. And I think from a gaming point of view, that is a good option because the thermals are better. It's got 8 cores and 16 threads, so it should be able to handle most games that you throw at it. And you can put up to an RTX 3080 in this laptop, but I have the RTX 3070. You can get the 3060 as well. I feel that the 3070 is a good sweet spot because when you move up to the 3080, it's several hundred more. You get a little bit more performance, but thermals will be affected. So I think 3070 is better for thermals. You still get good performance and the price is good as well. With regards to fan noise, it's just like any gaming laptop. If you put this right up to max settings and you really push it hard, you will hear the fans. But if you've got your headphones on, that shouldn't be a problem. I have noticed that when I dial those AMD settings, which I spoke about in my last video, that AMD Radeon software, once you dial those settings down, the fan noise does come down, and it really is quite a quiet laptop if you want it to be. And that's one of the things I do like about this. You can really push this hard and the fans will go loud, like 55 decibels, etc. And they'll go loud and you'll have to put your headphones on, or you'll have to put it on a cooling pad to bring the thermals down. But if you're willing to sacrifice a few frames per second, this is actually quite a quiet laptop. Maybe that's because I'm coming from a Dell Alienware laptop and those are notorious for being loud, with the fans going crazy. But if you're willing to, kind of drop the frame rates a little bit, the fan noise on this isn't that bad. It really isn't for a gaming laptop. Now, as far as playing games, I have played Forza Horizon 5 on this, and that maxes out at 60 frames per second if you download it from the Microsoft Store, from Game Pass. And this obviously has a QHD display up to 165 Hz refresh rate. So when you're using the laptop, you can switch between 60 and 165 Hz when you're using Windows. But when I was playing Forza Horizon 5, even at 60 frames per second, this game looked amazing on this laptop. It was just amazing driving about, even at 60 frames per second, it just looks fantastic on this QHD display. Obviously, many games will require more resources. So if you're playing a first-person shooter, you might be, aiming for frames per second, but you will be limited by the 165 Hz of this display unless you use an external monitor. Games like Counter-Strike, you'll be able to get a lot from this machine, like 200, 300. Even with Apex as well, you should be able to get 200 FPS on this. When I was playing Call of Duty Warzone, when I played it at 1440p with low settings, I was able to get like 100 to 115 frames per second. But when I dialed it down to 1080p, and I just used a 1080p resolution, the frame rates increased to about 120 to 130. Now, when I was playing it last week, I was really gunning for performance, and I was getting like 150, 160. So, like I said, if you're willing to sacrifice a little bit of noise, a little bit of fan noise, you can get a little bit out of this system. But for me, I've been trying to get that right balance between low fan noise, but still getting a good frames per second. Overall, I'm really happy with this from a gaming point of view. The display is something that I haven't calibrated yet. And I've seen some people, say negative things about it. I've seen some people say positive things about it. Overall, I'm very happy with it. I think the colours are good. I think the display is bright. And I've got absolutely no complaints about it from a fan noise point of view, from a display point of view, and from a gaming point of view. So from a gaming perspective, with the display and the fan noise and just gaming in general, I'm really happy with the Razer Blade 14. But there's a lot of other things to like about this laptop. And the first one is build quality. There's not too much flex at the top of the laptop here. And it's a good weight. I mean, it is heavier than some of the laptops out there, some of the 14-inch laptops, but there's a lot of performance in this laptop, and 1.8 kilograms isn't heavy. And I do like the ports as well. So if I jump over to my overhead camera, I'll show you the ports. What I like about this is you've got HDMI 2.1 there, you've got a Type A port, you've got your Type C port, you've got Type C there again, you've got Type A there again, and you've got your power and your headphone mic combo. And I like the fact that there's a Type A and Type C at each end of this laptop. This has Windows Hello support as well. So when you open up the laptop and you switch it on, which I can do just now, you'll see the red light going because it will start looking for you. So it will start looking for me, and there's no fingerprint sensor here. That's something I would have liked, but Windows Hello, as you saw there, does work really well. Razer heavily promote the fact that the Razer Blade 14 has advanced 7.1 surround sound stereo with THX spatial audio, as you see down there, and you can see the speaker grills at the side. Now, I've looked at a lot of reviews of the Razer Blade 14, and many reviewers said that the audio on this laptop was average, but I think that criticism is a little bit unfair because they were comparing the speakers in this laptop to 15-inch, 16-inch, and 17-inch gaming laptops, which obviously have more room for larger speakers. Now, if I, using the wrong mouse here, if I change my filters for a second and click this, 50% audio right now. So it is hard for me. It's hard for me to really show audio in videos such as this, but I have found audio to be quite good in my opinion. It is something that I've been happy with, but maybe your mileage will be different. When I've been gaming anyway, I do tend to use headphones, and if I'm listening to music, I tend to use headphones as well. But when I have used these speakers, I've been happy with them. Maybe that's because the speakers of my last laptop weren't great, but yes, I've been happy with these speakers. With regards to the trackpad, I have said this many times before, guys, but I am the world's worst reviewer when it comes to reviewing trackpads. I found this one to be okay. I've not had any issues with it, but I use a mouse 99% of the time. So other reviewers say that the trackpad is good, so you might want to listen to them. So with regards to the keyboard, if I start using it here, you should be able to see that it does light up. It is an RGB keyboard, and if you use the Synapse software, Razer Synapse, or if you use something like OpenRGB, you can change the colors here, and you can map different keys, different functions, different colors, etc. So that is there. Now, it's a chiclet style keyboard. The travel isn't too bad, but I've found this to be a very good keyboard to type on. I've not had any issues with it. The one issue that I do have with it is really an issue of quality control, and it's maybe hard to show you here in the laptop, but you notice the caps key? It's actually the apps key. So it's only the apps or the PS key, and it's maybe hard to show you that there with my lights just now, but if I turn my lights off, see how it's not lighting up all of the word there, just saying apps, PS or APS. So with the lights out, it's a little bit easier to see the issue there, that it doesn't say caps, it says apps or PS, depending on the brightness level of your backlit keyboard. And I searched online about this issue once I discovered that, and it does seem to be incredibly common. I saw a lot of people talking about this, and they all said it's just something that this laptop has. And I guess it's a superficial issue in a way. It doesn't affect using the keyboard, it doesn't affect performance, but it does show a major lack of quality control from Razer that is there, which did surprise me because I think the overall build quality here is excellent. And I do like the keyboard. The only, apart from the caps issue, the only real negative about the backlit keyboard is that it doesn't show you the secondary keys. So if you are using this at night time and you are relying on the backlit keyboard to see what's going on, you're not going to see the at key, you're not going to see your volume buttons, the function buttons properly, etc. You're not going to see those secondary keys. So that's a little bit frustrating as well. But there is, the keyboard is good to use, and there's a lot of options there as far as customizing the colors and what key does what. As I'm sure you're aware, no laptop is perfect, and that's certainly true for a 14-inch gaming laptop where the computing company has to decide what features to sacrifice and what to include and what not to include in this smaller laptop chassis. And there are some features that I would have liked to have seen in the Razer Blade 14, but for me these features are not deal breakers, but I would have liked to have seen them. One such example is Windows itself. In this laptop you'll get Windows 10 Home, and I know Windows 10 Home will be okay for most people or for a lot of people, but I would have liked to have seen Windows 10 Pro here because it gives you a lot of additional administrative privileges and permissions so that you can tweak performance, you can modify the registry, and it just gives you more options for tweaking Windows and improving battery life, improving performance, etc. So I would have liked to have seen that, but it's not a deal breaker because it is relatively cheap to upgrade from Windows 10 Home to Windows 10 Pro. And of course, Windows 11 is supported on this laptop. I'm holding back on that just now. There's no SD card on this laptop either. I don't think that's going to annoy a lot of people, but as someone who works on YouTube, it uploads videos, etc., it's something I would have liked to have seen, but it's also something that's very easy to fix with an SD card reader. As this has an AMD Ryzen CPU, there is no support for Thunderbolt. It would have been great to have support for Thunderbolt 3, Thunderbolt 4 for faster SSD, external SSD connections, eGPUs, etc. I don't think it's a deal breaker though. I think the speeds that you get for transferring files should be sufficient using the Type A port, the Type C port, or even going through your own network. Thunderbolt support is always welcome, but I think for a gaming laptop that has a good GPU anyway, I don't think it's a deal breaker. Certainly not for me. No fingerprint sensor, like I said earlier, would have been good to have one there, or a separate power fingerprint sensor button. You've got that power button in the keyboard. Not everyone will like that, but there's Windows Hello support. So when you open the laptop, it opens again. Not a deal breaker. Now this doesn't have an Ethernet port, and that's something I would have liked to have seen because yes, this is a smaller laptop, but it's still a gaming laptop, and for a lot of people, when they come home and they plug this in at home, they want to plug in their Ethernet port to reduce latency and get better speeds, etc. I've been using the Wi-Fi, the built-in Wi-Fi 6E module, and latency is good, speeds are good, but I still would have liked an Ethernet port. It just gives you some more options, a more stable connection, and eliminates any kind of Wi-Fi issues that you might have. I will say though, you can buy Ethernet adapters, which is why I don't think it's a deal breaker. You can buy Type C Ethernet adapters. You can get a Type C hub that's got an Ethernet port. So an Ethernet connection here that's built in would have been good. I try to avoid using accessories and adapters when I can, but it's not there, but you do have a good Wi-Fi 6E module. Now, one thing, it's not a deal breaker, but it is something you should be aware of. Like I said, this has an RTX 3070, the one that I've got, but it is limited to 100 watts. Now, there's other RTX 3070 laptops that have got 120, 130 and more, 130 watts and more, and those laptops do get better performance. So this has got a powerful laptop RTX 3070 in here, but it's not giving you the full performance from that RTX 3070. The reason this is not a deal breaker for me, the reason why I'm happy with it, having less performance, is because I appreciate there are sacrifices that do have to be made. It's a smaller laptop. I don't want the fans to go crazy. I want thermals to be under control. I want fan noise to be under control. And yes, I want the best performance I can get, but I'm willing to take a hit on that for a smaller laptop, better thermals, and better fan noise. So you should be aware that the 3070 in here is limited to 100 watts. Other laptops are limited to 80 watts. Another laptops are way up at 130, 150 watts. But just be aware of that. It's not a deal breaker for me myself, but if you're buying this laptop, if you're buying the Razer Blade 14, be aware that 3070 is limited to 100 watts. There's a couple of other things which they were not deal breakers for me, but there's certainly something that I don't like about this laptop. They're definitely negative. And the first one being that this laptop is a smudge magnet. And those of you who watched my unboxing video noticed that right away, that as soon as I opened this up, I started getting smudges on it. I started getting marks on it. There was little dust marks on it. And it is something that you're going to have to stay on top of. I've been trying to wipe this with cloths, etc. I've been trying to just keep it clean. And certainly compared to other laptops that I've got, it's a little bit more noticeable and it's a little bit easier to smudge. The other thing is the limitations of this laptop. And I spoke about this in my last video about upgrading this. And you can replace the Wi-Fi module, but you probably won't because it's a 6E module, which is quite up to date. But there's only one SSD in here. So it's a little bit limiting as far as what you can do as far as storing your games. You're going to have to maybe take advantage of some external SSDs for some things. If not, you're going to have to do what I did and upgrade the SSD to 2 terabytes or perhaps even 4 terabytes. I really would have liked to have seen 2 SSD slots in here, even if they were kind of smaller SSD formats. But you have to work with one SSD in here. So that's just one of the limitations that you've got. And the other limitation is that the memory in here, the RAM, is non-upgradable. The 16 gigabytes of soldered memory here. You cannot put in any additional memory. You can go to 32 gigabytes here. So right now, 16 gigabytes is okay for most games, but long term, if you're spending a lot of money on this, if you're thinking down the line, there might be a situation where 16 gigabytes of memory is not going to be enough to play the game that you like to play. And again, it comes down to how much you're willing to sacrifice. For me, 16 gigabytes seems to be okay right now for the games that I play. And when I'm video editing, 16 gigabytes should be okay for DaVinci Resolve. But it is a limitation of this laptop, and I really would have loved to have seen 32 gigabytes of memory here. But there's one other thing to notice here. It's the webcam. The webcam is 1 megapixels and it's 720p. So this is being recorded using the 720p webcam that is in the Razer Blade 14, and my audio is being recorded with its microphone. Now, with good lighting, I think it's barely acceptable. I think at a push, if you're doing a conference call or something, this isn't too bad. But when you turn the lights off, it's dark, it's grainy, and you don't have a lot to play with. Certainly not with that 720p resolution. What I'd like to do now is talk about the battery life of the Razer Blade 14. Now, Razer do quote up to 12 hours of battery life with this laptop. But from day one, as soon as I launched this laptop with the default Samsung SSD and with my new Samsung Evo SSD as well, I was only getting about 2 hours of battery life on a full charge, sometimes only an hour and a half of battery life with 98, 99, 100% battery. So I was concerned about that, and I was seeing those results right up until last night, and I ran the Windows battery report and it showed a healthy battery, it showed a full battery, but it also showed that the expected battery life was 2 hours. But I have applied some optimization tweaks, and I'm still getting some erratic results here, but it does look like performance from the battery is improving. So if I jump over to the Razer Blade 14, I can show you some things that I've done. The first thing I did was remove the Razer Synapse software. Now, in my last video, I did talk about Razer Synapse. I showed you what you can do with it, changing colors, change some performance settings, but I don't think you need it. I really don't think you need it, and it's just a drain in resources. So I did see an improvement in battery life just by removing that software. In AMD Radeon software, you will see an option for power saving. So choose gaming, choose esports, etc. if you're playing games, but if you want to conserve battery, if you're out and about, the power saving mode does seem to help a lot. The other thing you can do is with the NVIDIA settings is make sure you've got it so that you can see what's being used. So make sure you can select it so you can see GPU activity. I have selected it so that basically the AMD Ryzen CPU is being used for most things, and I'm only going to use the 3070 when I'm playing games or when I'm video editing. So what you can do is go into the NVIDIA control panel, and yes, you can, auto select does seem to work quite well as far as selecting the right CPU, the Ryzen CPU for most things. But you might have to go into each program and select that you want the discrete GPU, the 3070, or that you want the Ryzen CPU. So make sure that there's nothing using the 3070 that shouldn't. If you run most things off the Ryzen CPU, you should be okay. Now, another thing I recommend doing is, you see down here, you can see I've got 87%, 3 hours 54. If you drop down here and you drop it down to best battery life, the brightness will go down, like the keyboard settings, etc. The backlight will go down a little bit, etc. It will reduce the settings enough so that you get better battery life. And another thing you can do is download HW Info. So this is a free application, and this will help you troubleshoot. And this is what I've been relying on to see what was going on. I was checking Task Manager, which you can do there. Checking Task Manager and just seeing what apps were using, the CPU and the GPU. And you can check that there. GPU 1, GPU 0, etc. You can check that from there, and then you can go to HW Info and you can check the battery voltage, the remaining capacity. So you can see I've got 54,000 watt hours left, and then you can see that it's been drained by about 15, 16 watts. Now, if I start using this and I start loading games or I start loading YouTube, etc., if I load up YouTube just now, so I've muted the Razer Blade 14 and I've got one of my own videos playing in the background. It's not an ego thing. I just don't want a channel strike if I play someone else's video. And I've got it running on Chrome, which is not an efficient browser. I'd get better battery life by using Edge. But what I'm trying to do here is demonstrate what happens when you start opening things, because so far I've been testing the battery life with nothing open, and you're not going to use your laptop like that. So you can see the charge rate has went up from minus 15 watts or 15 watt draw to 18, 20, 25. And the estimated remaining time, the estimated remaining battery life will, of course, be affected by that. And you can see it's went down to like 2 hours 40 already. Now, this is something I can't really give a conclusive answer on right now. I need to do more tests. I need to test the battery more. I need to use more apps, because so far I've been doing battery tests, not really pushing this, not really using this. But it does seem to be quite inconsistent when you look online as to how good battery life is with the Razer Blade 14. I've seen a lot of people saying that they're getting up to 10 hours of battery using YouTube and Netflix, or even playing the odd game and things. And other people have said that they've followed all the recommended optimization practices, etc., and disabled things, and they're still not getting any more than 2 hours. And from what some people are saying, that could be a quality control issue, because they've sent the laptop back, they've got a battery replacement or something, and the issue has went away. So I need to test this more using different apps at the same time, but it does look like that when you start using YouTube, when you start using the browser, I'm going to be getting about 3 hours, 4 hours of battery life, and I'm not going to be getting anywhere close to the 12 hours that Razer say that this laptop can give. The battery inside the Razer Blade 14 charges incredibly quickly. It's quite impressive. You're talking a full charge in like an hour and a half. And if the Windows battery report is correct, I have a healthy battery inside this laptop. But when I was climbing down the rabbit hole and investigating what was going on with the battery in this laptop and why I wasn't getting good battery life, I started seeing some scary things about Razer laptops and the Razer company themselves. So if I jump over to my browser, I can show you what I'm talking about. Now, there's a lot of computing forums out there with people talking about the Razer laptops, but the Razer subreddit is a good place to start off. And you'll see a lot of people sharing their laptops and their monitors and whatnot, but you will also see a lot of people complaining. And one of the scariest things you will see is the fact that so many Razer laptops have had their battery explode. Maybe not in the first few months, maybe not in the first year, but after a year or two, it seems to be incredibly common for the battery to bloat. And then if you don't replace it, well, that happens. And that is scary. Now, a battery bloating and exploding can technically happen to any laptop, but I've had laptops from many different companies over the years, and I've never had any issues myself, and I've never seen anyone, at least with volume, I've not seen a lot of people complain about the issue with other computing companies such as Dell and Lenovo. But when you go to the Razer Reddit subreddit, you will see a lot of people posting their exploding batteries in the laptops. And look at that one there. And there's a video of one 2-year-old Razer Blade Stealth, the battery exploding. Is this a fire hazard? It's quite scary, and even when the battery doesn't explode, you're seeing a lot of people reporting the battery bloating. And I've seen a lot of discussions about this where people are saying it's okay, all you have to do is replace your battery every year. But then you start thinking, right, I need to spend $100 or so every year to replace a battery which is dangerous. You don't want to be around a battery when it's like that if there's a chance of it exploding. So it's quite concerning. When I was looking at the battery issues, I saw report after report, discussion after discussion. And yes, this one is 3 years ago, but this one is 10 days ago. So it seems to be something that has been going on for years. And it is quite scary when you keep seeing these stories, pop up again and again. And I did notice another YouTuber talking about this, and he sent his Razer Blade 14 back because of this issue. But it's not just the battery exploding. It's, that is a scary thing in itself, and the battery bloat issue is a concern as well. But one of the biggest concerns is of Razer, the company, and the fact that their customer service is terrible. There's so many stories out there about Razer just not fixing things, even though it should be fixed. They're not admitting fault. And the fact that battery bloating and battery exploding is still an issue years after this has occurred, and it's been a common thing, that's quite scary as well. The fact they've not addressed the issue, tackled the issue, said, sorry, this is something we're going to fix. But this person has sent the Razer Blade 14, sent it back. But you'll see a lot of people come out, and this is 3 days ago. Razer damaged my laptop and blamed me for consumer-infused damages. And yes, when you search for a problem, these subreddits, they will pop up with a lot of people talking about what's happened. There's obviously a lot of people that are happy with their Razer laptops, but there's a lot of people complaining about, customer service, and they've talked about their own experience. And if you look at Trustpilot in the UK, they have got a 1.6 rating, which is pretty bad. And yes, that is a service where a lot of people complain about a company, if something hasn't went their way. But dive deep into this Razer subreddit and you will see a lot of people complaining about poor customer service and the fact that they're not fixing major issues. So after spending some time on the Razer subreddit and looking at hundreds of different discussions, it is clear that despite being a premium brand at a premium price, Razer laptops have used cheap, subpar batteries over the years, and they've never addressed that issue. And it does seem that it's not a case of if I will have a problem with the battery, it does seem to be a case of when. So in a worst case scenario, the battery will bloat, and it'll cause some problems with the motherboard, or it will explode and it will kill me. But even in a best case scenario, it does appear to be that a lot of people change their batteries in Razer laptops after a year or two. And that's not because the battery has lost its capacity, it's because of the battery bloating. That is a major concern, and it doesn't help that Razer's reputation is terrible, to say the least. So over the next few weeks, I need to make a decision as to whether I keep this laptop. Simply, forgetting the laptop itself, just, whether I return this laptop simply because of the possibility of battery issues and the possibility of having to deal with Razer's terrible customer relations team. So there you have it, guys. This has been the Razer Blade 14, the ultimate 14-inch gaming laptop with the AMD Ryzen 5900HX octa-core CPU. You can pick this up with the laptop version of the RTX 3060, 3070 or 3080. The model that I've got is the 3070 and it retails new in the UK at 2,200. If you want to go up to that 3080, it's a whopping £2,800. So it's a lot of money. So you might want to do what I did and buy it like new, which I was lucky to get from Amazon Warehouse, or you can buy it used. And you will find people selling this online. Despite the high price point, there are a few things that I think Razer cheaped out on, such as the 1 megapixel 720p webcam. I mean, that's a webcam I would have been disappointed with 10 years ago, never mind now. And the backlit keyboard doesn't show secondary keys, and it didn't even show me all of the caps locks, which kind of just shows a lack of quality control. There are other sacrifices in this laptop, but for me, I'm happy with them. I can accept them. They're not a deal breaker. And the reason is I accept the fact that this is smaller and it's lighter than other gaming laptops. Most gaming laptops are 15 or 17 inches, and this has got the same CPU and GPU and the same performance as other 15, 16 and 17 inch gaming laptops. So I'm happy with a few of those sacrifices, such as the lack of an Ethernet port, the lack of Thunderbolt, and only one SSD slot there. Also bear in mind that this laptop has 16 gigabytes of memory, and because the memory is soldered, it cannot be upgraded. It's not ideal. I would have liked that situation to be different, but I can accept these because it's a 14-inch laptop. It's super light and I can take this anywhere. And from a gaming perspective, I like the QHD display. I like the fact it goes up to, it's got a refresh rate of 165 Hertz, and thermals and fan noise have not been bad. So overall, I like this. I like typing on the keyboard. I like the screen. I like the size. I like the weight, and I've been happy with the performance. But like I said towards the end of this video, I do have major concerns with the battery that's inside because of what's been happening with other Razer customers over the years. There is a history of Razer laptops having batteries which bloat and explode if you don't tackle that issue. And Razer's poor customer service does not fill me with confidence as well. So as far as the laptop goes, I'm incredibly happy. I've got an absolute bargain here. But over the next few weeks, I will have to sit down and think whether that battery issue is such a major concern that it makes me send this back. But I hope you've enjoyed this video. As always, please do leave a comment below. I'd love to hear what you think about this little gaming powerhouse. And until next time, take care.